Hey, what's up, everyone? Tyler Dunn here at GoLongTD.com, and inside the Substack app, and of course, right in your email inbox with the address you use to subscribe. Happy New Year to everybody out there. Thank you so much for making us your home for long-form journalism in pro football for 5+ years now. We launched in November of 2020, and here we are in January of 2026. So I did a post at the site. Just really wanted to express my gratitude for everybody out there. You know, when I launched this thing back in 2020, I had no clue what to expect. Are there really people out there that want to see an article, kind of cross their peripheral and go to the kitchen and get their wallet and bust out the credit card and punch in those digits and commit to something like that? You know, it's not just the $8 a month or the $50 a year. I think it's an investment of time, right? Everybody's so busy doing a million different things with their lives, with their kids. I get it that I'm asking a lot of people to hit pause on life and read a story for a half hour or an hour or an hour and a half. And all of you out there, subscribers and people on our free list have made that commitment to read, to go beyond rage bait screenshots on the Bird app. You know, and I think a lot of media corporations have kind of gone that route. And that was the case when I launched. It's honestly what I was banking on, frankly, that as most media corporations kind of zag one direction and go the fast food model, mock drafts, power rankings, that kind of stuff, that we would zig the other way and just put out some NFL features, see if people want to learn, see if people want to read. I've covered the NFL now for 15 years, try to talk to as many coaches, scouts, players as I possibly can year round and bring you all something different. And right now, this is, again, it's only because of you, and it's only because you share with a friend. It's completely word of mouth. No sponsors, no ads, no venture capital money, none of that. It's 100% reader supported. We're number 4 on the Substack's best sellers list in the sports category. So just want to thank you all very much. I do not take it for granted. I want you all to reach me anytime. If I don't get back right away, I promise you I will ASAP. Just hit me up at golongtd@substack.com any day. Let me know what you want in 2026, what you're looking for out of your investment into Go Long, and let's just keep this thing growing, man. I feel like we've got a lot of momentum going into this year, and it's our community, right? I can sense it, I can feel it every Sunday inside that game day chat. I feel like we all kind of know each other in there, and I want to keep this thing growing. So thank you very much. I figured we'd just record a quick podcast here. Little housekeeping. Right now, we have an episode of the Ty and Bod Pod up at Go Long. Bob McGinn, our Pro Football Hall of Famer. So fortunate to have Bob back, my old mentor at the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel. We've got a pod breaking down the Packers' defeat. I mean, that's putting it mildly, right? They were more so mollywopped at Lambeau Field by Derrick Henry and the Baltimore Ravens. Just absolutely ran out of their own building, 300 plus yards. We dissect all of that, try to make sense of it. You know, is this a problem that they can realistically fix by playoff time? Holy hell. You know that Ben Johnson and the Bears are picking up on some of that teach tape. And sorry, Mike Tanier, I know our buddy in the Substack universe wants that banned, and that's a good call. I don't want to hear teach tape in there. I just use that phrase. So sorry about that, Mike. But yes, Ben is looking at that film. And then also you may face Saquon Barkley. We'll see what happens this weekend. Some teams are sitting starters. Some teams have something to play for. Some teams like the Lions are just playing for pride. Who knows how this all plays out? But you can imagine the run defense will be under the microscope for the Packers. The Chicago Bears and San Francisco 49ers staged an absolute shootout thriller. What does that all mean? We get into everything. Ben Johnson, Caleb Williams, and they put up points at will, to their credit, and it went right down to the wire. There's one throw that Caleb made that reminded Bob of Brett Favre, that the free play on a rope, less than 2 seconds in the air. So we get into everything Chicago. The defense, not looking good. The offense is hitting their stride. What does that all mean? The Lions fell apart. The Vikings, too little, too late. That's your NFC North pod, so check it out. It's for subscribers only. a little holiday break for my pal Jim Monos, our longtime NFL scout. As you know, he's been with the Philadelphia Eagles, won a ring with the New Orleans Saints as a Southeast scout, and was the director of personnel for the Bills. We'll be back with real football next week. So into the playoffs, we'll have an episode for you on that front. And also in terms of words, right? That's why you subscribe. Whenever there's just a few extra days where you don't see a Q&A or a column or a feature at the site, I promise you there's good reason for it. We needed a little extra time to pen that Jordan Poyer story before Christmas. Thanks for making that one of our most read stories ever at the site. Wow, what a psychedelic journey that was with Jordan Poyer, from alcohol abuse to Toradol and cluster headaches and not even sleeping before that Bengals playoff game, to seeing Damar Hamlin die on a field, come back to life. That effed him up, his words, to the upteenth degree, to ayahuasca, to breath work, to how he sees the world, to aliens. We get into everything. It was a conversation I know I'll never forget for the rest of time. Actually, I'm really mad at myself. I have the app that Jordan talked about in the story, and I have been meaning to try out this breath work and try to sift into an astral realm and maybe enter a new dimension. So I'll let you know how that goes. We'll absolutely write about that as soon as we can. But yes, when there's a little bit of a lull in the writing, it's because we're working on something a little deeper. I was in Houston around that hellacious defense for an entire week, and it was illuminating. Learned a lot about this defense gunning to be an all-time great unit and the personalities that make up this crew. Cannot wait to share that. So that will be live this weekend. Keep an eye out for that piece. All right. So what stands out in the NFL? There are games this weekend. The playoff teams, by and large, are pretty set. The Ravens and Steelers will play in game 272 that the NFL, you know what? We like to poke fun at the NFL and some of the things they do. That's actually kind of cool. I like the fact that they have this quote unquote game 272 that they say for the very end with something at stake. And yeah, the Cleveland Browns did Roger Goodell and the suits at Park Avenue a big favor by ensuring that the AFC North is up for grabs. Yeah, I mean, the Steelers, that was pathetic. I don't care. DK Metcalf, no DK Metcalf, just beat the Cleveland Browns. Just find a way. Myles Garrett said it after the game that he thought that the Steelers were a little too obsessed, a little too concerned with trying to prevent him from getting the NFL sack record versus just outright winning the game. I don't think he's far off rewatching that game. I can tell you what, Aaron Rodgers sure as hell doesn't want to see that clip replayed ad nauseum on NFL films, getting sacked by Myles Garrett. Could you have two more different, I don't know what's right, what's wrong. Two more different approaches to this all. I mean, his predecessor, Brett Favre, falls down for Michael Strahan, hands him the record. Everybody hugs, everybody loves. And then you've got Aaron Rodgers. I mean, it looks like they, to a detriment, did not want Myles Garrett to get a sack. So you're doubling them, you're chipping them, you're flowing all action away from them. And they can't manufacture any offense against the Browns. Credit to Jim Schwartz. Really one of the more underrated football minds of a generation, and learned a little bit more about him as we explored this Texans stuff. I don't know. I don't see how the Ravens lose this game. I don't care where they play. Baltimore, Pittsburgh. It's in Pittsburgh. It could be on Mars. It just feels like this isn't the Ravens team that we all expected to be a Super Bowl contender back in September. Then they have the injuries. Their defense is atrocious for a couple months. They steady that. Then Lamar Jackson has some issues pop up, and he may or may not be feuding with the team. That stuff's been dragging on for years, it seems. But as I'm recording this, he's practicing. They're 8-8. They've got a shot to be 9-8. They've got a shot to be the number 4 seed. You saw what Derrick Henry did to the Packers at Lambeau. Are we afraid of the Ravens again? I don't know, but if Lamar and Henry and Zay Flowers and that offense can rev up, who knows? Who knows? But I think that the Ravens win that game. Over in the NFC South, hey, I love me some Baker Mayfield. He's obviously playing hurt. He's obviously not playing his best football. This is a Buccaneers team falling apart, tearing apart at the seams. It's not pretty. Todd Bowles dropping a bunch of F-bombs after that loss to the Falcons on Thursday night. Hasn't gotten better since then. losing to Miami, multiple chances to get back in that game. They can't do it. Neither one of these teams is going to be threatening to make it to Santa Clara. Toss up, the Buccaneers after the Falcons upset the Rams. They obviously, the Bucs need some help, with the whole three-way tie scenario. So even if they win outright, you don't necessarily win the division, but that's something to watch on Saturday night. And, two things I want to get into on this app. First, hard coaching. And this is probably something worth fleshing out in a column ahead of the playoffs. But just, some random thoughts at the top of the head here. We've written about it, right? Like Mike McDaniel, what he did with Tua Tagovailoa back in whatever that was, 2022. You've got a quarterback staring in the mirror, asking himself, do I suck? His confidence shot in a dark place. Mike McDaniel gets the job. Mike McDaniel cuts up, seemingly an infinite number, hundreds and hundreds of plays of him playing well, tries to pump that confidence into his head. And there's power in that. We did a huge series on it during the year. That's a good thing, right? Like you see a quarterback you can win with. You've got Tyreek Hill now, Jaden Waddle, Raheem Mostert, Jeff Wilson, and a coach in Mike McDaniel who can design plays with the best of them. Again, make sure you read The Why is Everything, Mike Silver's book. You'll have a whole new appreciation for everything Mike McDaniel. We had it on the podcast to talk about it. You can find that episode. Genius when it comes to the run game. And things are good. And then Tua starts suffering all of these concussions. There's really no mobility to his game. He's very receivers open, quick trigger, hit him in stride, hand the baton in the 4x1. And if you can kind of take away that first look, that first read, there's issues. So in a way, there's two ways to look at it. Like the positivity approach, like, trying to fill your quarterback's mind with good vibes 24/7. And it's quarterback to quarterback. It's player to player. Everybody's different. For Tua at that time, it worked. And if it wasn't for those concussions, if it wasn't for the injuries that Miami suffered at the end of the year, maybe it's a different conversation. They had a really good thing working in back-to-back seasons. The next year, they dropped 70 on the Denver Broncos. But the thing has fallen apart. Now you see that Tua's bench. Quinn Ewers is in the game. We'll see what Miami does this offseason. Who knows? The other approach is what we're seeing this year. And that is absolutely working. Wrote extensively about everything Chicago. 3 parts. Go along. Check it out. Go beyond the screenshots. This isn't just out of thin air, invented. The coaches there in Chicago were blunt when it came to the quarterback and his willingness to work, lack thereof. They were also blunt assessing themselves. They thought that early on they probably did change too much, that they should have said, this is our offense. We're going to run our offense. Instead, they placate. They changed the snap count. There's a lot of other factors that go into it. You can check it out. But by the time Thomas Brown's the interim coach at the end of the year, it does try to get tough with Caleb Williams and hold him accountable. It's too little too late. The season's lost. Nothing is going to work. There's a scene that we have in the story where the quarterback just storms away from Thomas Brown. He doesn't want to hear what he has to say. Fast forward. Ben Johnson takes over. I'm told Ben Johnson knows all of this. Everything we reported, everything we wrote, very, very aware of what's going on there at Hallis Hall when it comes to Caleb Williams. Makes it clear, this is our offense. This is what we need out of you. Play under center. They do take that wristband away. So they figure out a way to have him run the Ben Johnson offense. And if he can, great. A surreal talent. We all saw what he did at USC. Heisman Trophy winner. Can create, can improvise. Unbelievably strong arm, as you saw there at Levi's Stadium on Sunday night. And can that work? I think that Ben Johnson wasn't sure. They both been very open about that relationship, how it was hard for a while. I think, was it Aditi at CBS mentioned during the broadcast that there were times that Caleb was wondering, man, does this guy even like me? Ben Johnson was hard on him. And to Caleb Williams' credit, he stuck with it. He ran the offense. They've been winning football games with a smash mouth rushing attack, with an opportunistic defense, with some 2-minute drill heroics from Caleb Williams. I mean, things could be going wrong for 56, 57, 58 minutes. He's turned it on. Even those coaches who were critical, that's the first thing they'll tell you. Like this quarterback, he shines in that 2-minute scenario. And then week to week to week to week, you do see him get more comfortable in this offense. So outside looking in, it sure looks like this is a quarterback who has responded the right way to that hard coaching. Whereas last year, it was a different story, as reported. And that's the case everywhere you look with these new coaches. Mike Vrabel, Josh McDaniels in New England, Drake May, he should be the MVP, right? This is the quarterback a certain GM mocked and laughed off the screen because his chest hurt. Drake May is in position, if you believe in the Vegas odds, after Stafford's 3-pick game against the Falcons, it looks like he'll be MVP. And I'll tell you what, man, like you talk to players who have been with Josh McDaniels, those Las Vegas Raiders days, the Patriot days when he was OC forever, he is hard on you in many different ways, right? With what they're asking you to do as a quarterback. You know, this isn't 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 progressions just going across the field. He wants you to read the field. He's going to give you answers for everything. Wants you to read coverages, which is so hard to do. You know, when you've got safeties and linebackers and everybody using deception, everybody disguising, it's tough to read coverages, but he will give you all those answers. And so, you know, we talked to T.C. McCartney, the quarterback's coach for Drake May, his rookie year, and he's called Drake May one of the absolute smartest people in the entire building. He sees somebody who always wants to do the right thing 24/7, 365, in addition to the athleticism, in addition to the arm. This is somebody who could work, but even he was wondering. Look, when they had him, you know, Alex Van Pelt's there. He comes from that Mike McCarthy quarterback school. The emphasis was more so like footwork, pocket movement, syncing up your drop with the routes, those kind of fundamentals, because Drake May didn't do a lot of that stuff in North Carolina. So he got all that stuff, but, you know, they didn't want to put too much on his plate like Josh McDaniels did. So he was wondering, man, I love Drake May, TC says, but it might take a year for him to elevate to the elite of the elite class. And then we caught up during the season. He's like, yeah, he's there. He's there now. So there really isn't a discernible, concerning weakness at all to Drake May's game in year 2 in the NFL. And it's a product of responding to the hard coaching of Josh McDaniel. You know, Josh McDaniel. So let me just find this story, because I caught up with Josh Dobbs, his backup quarterback, out there in Foxborough about it. And, you know, he played in, here we go. He played in Pittsburgh, where Ben Roethlisberger kind of ran the show, and there really wasn't, you know, that kind of direction and that kind of day-to-day, this is how we're going to do it. It was very, all right, it's Ben's show, and he's kind of learning on the fly as a young quarterback himself. So if I can find it here, one second, if you just bear with me. That's a long story. A lot of our stories tend to be pretty long, but Dobbs really opened up on all of this and how tough it is to run this offense. He says, you know, I mentioned how McDaniels can be exceptionally hard on his players. He clashed with Brady publicly, privately. You do hear some of those horror stories from the Raiders days. Dobbs goes, quote, "Isn't that what you want? We all want to be the best. I've seen it both ways. I've shown up to work and I had no clue what I was being asked to do. And I've been in a place where you've had to come in as a quarterback and it's like, here's a game plan. Here's a script. You're figuring out your reads and your footwork, and it's trial by error. There's no framework of what you're trying to get done as an offense. I've been there. I've done that. That's not enjoyable." And he really sees McDaniels as an extension of Vrabel. Vrabel obviously famously can be tough on guys. Amazing first meeting that was captured by the team itself, what he expects out of you day to day. Here's Dobbs. You want a coach that has a plan, that has reasoning, and knows how he's trying to attack the defense. So yeah, he can be hard on you, but especially in this locker room, that's what we want. We want to be held to a high standard, and we want to try to become the best players we can be. I want to know the why. I want to know why and how we're attacking them. You just want reasoning. As I said, I've seen the exact opposite of the coin. And that's been Drake May. You know, and T.C. McCartney said, this is somebody who has all kinds of processing. Yes, pre-snap, he's got that process. He knows what he's going to do. But then when the post-snap, he can see space. He can anticipate throws. He can see where those windows are going to open up. He has responded to the hard coaching. Go out there to Jacksonville. Liam Cohen. There's been many a viral clip, it seems, back to September, October, of Cohen losing his mind after Lawrence does something on the field. Arms out wide, mouth agape, swearing, who knows what's being said. And you will start to wonder, man, he didn't draft Trevor Lawrence. He inherited Trevor Lawrence. And Trevor Lawrence has had turnover issues. yes, there's the potential. He's been the prince that's promised since high school to Clemson, national champ, first overall pick in 2021. And now he's on his third head coach, right? Urban Meyer was a disaster. He's kicking his own players and threatening to cut Dewey Wingard. That was from our story because he called him a rookie head coach or a rookie. Oh, man, Urban. I always laugh when I see him on the tube. He's everywhere. Commercials too. Then to Doug Peterson. The going was good for a while, and it wasn't. And then things fell apart. To his third head coach. But it sure looks like Trevor Lawrence has also responded to hard coaching. To a Liam Cohen who has worked in, gosh, you go back to Seattle, Tampa. He has been working with some of the best quarterbacks in the sport. He got so much out of Baker Mayfield. He knows what he wants. He's young. He built a hell of a staff. I mean, I think we tend to forget that. Oh yeah, here he is. Yeah, I don't know why I said Seattle. The Rams, of course. He was the OC with the Rams in 2022. The QB coach before that. Had the year as the OC in Tampa. Has a great staff in Jacksonville. He knows what he wants. They went out and got Jacoby Myers. Things aren't perfect, but 1 through 53, a solid roster that will be a tough out in the playoffs. You know, if Buffalo gets Jacksonville, it's looking that way. If all things kind of go the way you'd expect, it looks like Trey Lance is getting the start for the Chargers. Jim Harbaugh, is wisely going to sit Justin Herbert after he just got the hell beat out of him by the Texans. He's got the hand. Yeah, you give him a week to rest. Denver should win that game. It's been ugly for Denver, but they should win that game, get the number 1 seed. They do have something to play for, which would mean that the Chargers drop to the 7 seed. The Bills get the 6 seed. The Bills go to Jacksonville for a little wild card rematch. Who can forget the epic clash between Blake Bortles and Tyrod Taylor? What was it, like 10-3? Man, that was an ugly football game. The Bills ended the drought, 17 years. Fans here locally were going to get whatever they could out of the Bills at that point. It was the playoffs. I know people that drove from Buffalo to Jacksonville. Different game now. And again, this is probably something we should chip away at story-wise. The Bills have to win. I don't care what their seed is. I don't care if it's home, away. This coach, this quarterback, this team has been banging on that door now, year to year. They've got to get over the hump. And look, I think Brandon Beane has done his part. He's under fire. It hasn't been pretty at the wide receiver position. But look, you do have to evolve as a GM. They've done the version of an offense that's going to spread you out, throw it all over the place. It was beautiful. Then 13 seconds happens. That's on Sean McDermott, as reported. You get into the next year, you get pummeled by the Cincinnati Bengals in the snow. You've got to evolve. You build up the offensive line. You develop James Cook as a workhorse back. You get some balance. You allot money into some different spots. They didn't go full Cincinnati. They didn't go full Miami. Yes, they'd love a stud receiver. Who wouldn't? But the roster's been good enough to beat the Chiefs, 5 years in a row now, as the Chiefs are getting to the Super Bowl, winning it, lording over the AFC, lording over the NFL. The talent acquired by the GM via the draft, via free agency, was good enough to beat them then, not in the playoffs. It's about the playoffs. And I think that you can probably hear it in our voices on the Real Football Podcast, and you can see it in the way we write. I don't want to rush to conclusions to one extreme or the other with the Bills, September to October to November to December. It's about January. Everybody's been wanting to hit that simulate the January button. This is where legacies are defined. This is why Brandon Beane drafted 5 defensive players in a row in April, signed a bunch of defensive guys before that. Look, since then, a lot of them are hurt. Michael Hoyt had the torn Achilles. Larry Ogunjobi, in and out. He had the suspension with Hoyt before all that. Maxwell Harrison started camp with that injury. Landon Jackson shows a little bit of promise for a few snaps. He's done. So there's been some bad luck involved, but we can't use injuries as an excuse. Everybody has them. Joey Bosa, I think he leads the league in forced fumbles. So there's times where he gives up the edge as a run defender, but then he gives you something as a pass rusher. All these moves on defense were made to give Sean McDermott a menu of options come playoff time. Like, get a stop. Right? The offense hasn't been the problem in the playoffs. The Bengals game was ugly. Outside of that, the offense has done enough. Both versions of the offense. The throw it all over the place offense and the ram it down your throat with James Cook and throw when we need to backs and tight ends and receivers offense. It was bad. It was ugly against Philadelphia. I mean, that's about as discombobulated, disoriented of an offense that we've seen out of the Bills in quite some time. So there's concern, but still, it's about the playoffs. What do we see at that point? Josh Allen is going to have to play Superman. Is the foot an issue? He says no. We'll see, right? Actions speak louder than words. He is getting a little older, and there were that one sack in the Philly game does stand out. You know, if I'm going to point to something that kind of makes me a little concerned, it's when he took the 20-plus yard sack, whatever the hell it was, when he's running all over the place trying to create a play because nobody can get open. And the analogy that pops to mind, it's like, I'm 38 years old. I'm sure there's some other fathers of three out there that can relate. Like, if I'm at home watching a game and I want to crack open an IPA, if I get to IPA number 2, I know I'll have a headache the next day, and I better cut myself short. I can't go with number 2. I got to stick with just one. And I think, you got to kind of know your limits. Josh Allen, you got to kind of know in that moment, running around, trying to create a play. Maybe you're a little nicked up. Maybe these aren't the same receivers. Maybe you throw it away, right? Stick to the one IPA and let's live for another down. There's got to be some of that in his game at this point of his career. And that's what would be a little concerning, because as we've always advocated, you want Psycho Josh in full as a runner, throwing it all over the field with a full menu of options, able to dissect everything. The Tampa game was beautiful. There have been several moments this year where he has looked like the reigning MVP that deserves to be MVP again. You cannot hold him back. He cannot be a handoff machine. You need to unleash him. But where is that line? That's where it gets a little difficult. And look, they've got problems. The run defense, the injuries, what's going on with Josh, the receivers, they got picking up Brandon Cooks. He's had some drops, but then he made a play against the Eagles. You're still going into the playoffs with maybe the best quarterback in the NFL, maybe the best running back in the NFL. You just got to get some stops on defense. And look, they held Philadelphia to 17 yards in the second half. That's encouraging. Sean McDermott goes for 2, goes for the win. That's encouraging, right? That's been an evolution out of the head coach. No Andy Reid in the playoffs. He's somebody that has made McDermott tighten up. That's not me talking. That's people have seen him during the week of an Andy Reid Chiefs playoff game. He's not in the dance. That will help. No Joe Burrow, no Bengals in the dance. That will help. Is it Super Bowl or bust? Strong statement, but I'd say at least conference championship game, and you might have to get to that Super Bowl. Look, in the era of Tom Brady, Peyton Manning found a way to get some rings. Aaron Rodgers got a ring. Drew Brees got a ring. You go back and you look at those playoff runs, they got help out of their defense, right? Aaron Rodgers in that NFC Championship game wasn't perfect at Soldier Field. The defense, B.J. Raji, steps back on that Dom Capers zone blitz, picks off Caleb Haney, goes to the house. Nick Collins, Howard Green gets a big paw on Ben Roethlisberger at the goal line, picked off by Nick Collins. He gets to the house. Before that, Tramon Williams had a pick 6 against Atlanta. Before that, Tramon Williams picks off Michael Vick in the wild card. The Saints, Tracy Porter, NFC Championship game, forcing all those turnovers on Adrian Peterson, the NFC title game. Then Porter picked off Manning in the Super Bowl. Even Manning, his numbers in 06 with the Colts were not pretty. They didn't even score a touchdown against the Ravens in the divisional round. But the defense, playmakers, a defense, by the way, very similar to what we see at Buffalo at times, giving up tons of yards on the ground. They were gashed by the Jacksonville Jaguars. Was it Maurice Jones-Drew, Fred Taylor, another back, ran all over them late in the year. You're thinking, no way this team get to the Super Bowl. They turned it on when they needed to turn it on. Created some turnovers. Bailed out. Manning and Brady staged that amazing AFC Championship game that ended on a Marlon Jackson pick. Like, they got that play. The Bills need that play. Like, it's okay that you're giving up these yards and chunks and you've clearly got some injuries and some issues. Who's going to make a play? Who's going to step up and make a play? You got to get those stops on defense. It's always been about that for the Buffalo Bills. So now we shall see. I think you know what you're going to get out of Allen. You know what you're going to get out of James Cook. Even after that Philly game, I'm confident the offense will do their part because they have. This quarterback is competitive as hell. He rises to the moment. Whether it's Jacksonville, wherever, I see him rising to the moment. Let's see if the defense, Sean McDermott's defense, with some options, and Brandon Beane, that's why I was all in on the defensive moves. Get some new bodies in there. Get some new blood in there. Somebody else who can make a play. We'll see. All right. Thank you so much for hanging out with us on an abbreviated half-hour pod. I'll be back with Jim Monos at Real Football next week. Of course, Bob McGinn. And keep a lookout for our very long form story on the Houston Texans. Thank you so much. Filled with gratitude. Go long is only possible because of you. Be sure to reach me anytime. Happy New Year, everyone.